Is awesome. I am now going to hit the record button. Hello, everybody. This is the Workflow Workshop. I'm Kendyl Young with Diggs out in Glendale, California, and we are conducting our workflow workshops. A couple of things that we're going to accomplish in this hour. In the first part, I want to show you how I learned how to write workflows. And then in the second part of the hour, I want to address some of your specific questions. So this is a small class so that we can hear everybody and that we can get everybody's questions, because for many of you, you're so confused about how do you use workflows, you're not even sure what question to ask. And that's actually okay. We'll try to bust past that and turn that light on for you, because this is one of those, it's almost like a puzzle. The minute that the light turns on, the entire thing will become clear to you. And then you're going to be off to the races like some of the other people in our Facebook community. So I just kind of wanted to start with an overview of why you want to go through what for some feels like pain and suffering to learn how to do workflows. Okay. So why do we use workflows? The reason we do them is because in our transactions, in our marketing, in our operations, we do the same darn things over and over again. And it would be great to not have to think about them. Okay. We use them because there are a lot of details that escape us, because, you get, I don't know what your maximum number of transactions are before your brain goes bluey, but for me, it's four. I can't handle more than four without some kind of a system. And then little details start escaping, and that drives me, well, it keeps me up at night. Our brains are full. I don't know about you, but I'm a middle-aged lady with memory problems, and I don't have the bandwidth to remember. Sometimes I can't even remember what was in the freaking counteroffer that I just signed 5 days ago. So my brain is full. We need workflows because our assistants need a roadmap. You might have an assistant, and later on this afternoon will be the first session of our team training for Realvolve. You might have an assistant, or you might be hoping to get one. And even if you're just hoping to get one, you're afraid that you don't know how to manage the assistant and tell them what to do. Well, workflows become a roadmap for that person and the person who comes after that person. We're busy selling houses. We're not human resources. We're not trainers. We're not managers, most of us. And so workflows allows us to integrate new human resources into our personal business, and do it without slowing us down, keeping us from selling homes. Uh, we want workflows because I hate waking up in the middle of the night and wondering or worrying, actually, that some detail didn't get done. We need workflows because the deals bleed into each other, right? You get 5, 6, 10 escrows going at once. And you can't remember if you did the purchase contract and sent it to escrow on all 10 deals or only 7 of them. I mean, they just bleed into each other. If you haven't had that experience, it's absolutely rabbit hole inducing. And then the last reason, and kind of the most important reason we need workflows, is because we need to pay attention to what matters. And what matters? Our brokers say our paperwork matters, risk management matters, getting the details of the contract right matters. But actually, I kind of think what matters are our clients' peace of mind, our clients' ability to feel like things are being handled, that you're by their side, and they won't feel that way if your nose is down in a paper of unorganized paperwork trying to figure out what details need to get done next. I think that we need workflows because we need to be freed up for the minutia of paperwork and details, and free ourselves up for holding our clients' hands, for giving them that peace of mind, for developing those relationships so that we have a better chance of repeat and referral business after the transaction. In my opinion, that's what really, really matters. And if that's not what matters to you, then what really matters is having more time for your kids, more time for your hobbies, more time to pay attention to your health and your nutrition and your fitness. That's, in my opinion, what matters. Life. So, with that introduction, let's get into the actual writing of workflows. Now, I'm going to switch screens here. Can you see my Evernote screen?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. So most of us, if not all of us, have some kind of list in our heads when we take a listing, you know what we need to do, or when we meet somebody via the internet or in the community or, you know, while you're at open house. Most of us have a list in our head of what we're going to do next. Some of us have written that list down. Okay. We're going to take a really simple list. What happens when you meet somebody? Doesn't matter where. And how do I want to follow up? And so this is the simplest workflow that I have in my particular system. So I'm going to show you how I translated that list. Okay, for me, it's written down because I'm like a nutcase about pen and paper. But for you, it might be in your head. How did I translate that list into a workflow? So this is a table that we have in our workflow workbook. If you don't have a copy of it, I'll tell you how to get to it in just a second. It's in our help section. And this list is just what happens when I want to follow up with somebody. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to take the list in our head and we just want to write it down in this table. And, you know, the first thing I want to do, duh, is I want to call. So I want to call in this particular case one time a week. This is a hot lead. I don't want to lose track of them. They said that their lease is up in 2 months and they need to buy. Okay, really really hot lead. So we're going to call one time a week. That's the title of it. Who depends on who's going to execute the action. In this particular case, it's going to be me because I'm the one who made the contact. And then when is this call going to happen? Well, this call is going to happen 7 days. So days, weeks, months, and years is what the DWM and Y is. So 7 days after. Okay. So before or after is B or A, 7 days after the start date. Okay. So what this means is that I'm going to call, and I'm going to call one time a week, and I'm going to call every 7 days after the start date. Okay, and I'll show you exactly how to do repetitive things like that. Um, the next thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm going to make a decision. Um, Stay or go. Okay, so what that means is I don't want to call one. Hello? Okay.
My dad.
Okay, no worries, man. So the to do is I want to make a decision. Am I gonna keep calling these people or not? Right? Because let's say that you met them at open house and you call with your follow up phone call, and then you call every week after that, and they never return your phone call. They never pick up the phone. At some point, you're gonna make the decision: are you gonna ditch this guy, or are you gonna continue to try to call them? Some of you might have listened to a guru, which is, you know, call until they buy or die. I'm not that person. I get really disheartened after a certain number of times. So
Yeah.
that decision maker is going to be me, and I'm going to do that. Let's just say 6 months. I'm actually not that persistent, but I'm going to, you know, I'm going to give you an idealized version of myself, right? So sometime 6 months after the start date, I'm going to make a decision. Are they going to are am I going to drop them from my list, or am I going to continue calling them because they returned my call once in the last 6 months? You know, I don't know. Maybe it's a $10 million buyer, and I still want to talk to them. It's going to be your call. And the last thing that I want to do, you wouldn't necessarily do in your paper list, but you're going to want to do this in Realvolve, and that is you're going to want to tag them. And the reason that you want that is you want, well, I want to keep track of who in my database is on my call list, just in general, who's there. So I want to be able to bring that up. So again, that's going to be me. And we're going to do that 0 days after the start. Okay, so this is just a really simple hit list of things that need to get done. Now, most of this stuff, like, you know, when it should be done and who should do it, you might not know that right now. Just take the title and just start free associating all the stuff that you need to do for whatever workflow you're writing. And we'll get into in a moment the different types of workflows that you could write for. Okay. So that's a simple table. Any questions on that?
No.
No? Okay, great. All right. So what we're going to do next.
Wait, I have one. I have
Sure.
one. This is Lauren.
Hi, Maury.
I just want to make sure. Hi. I just want to make sure I understand that by putting this call one times a week, at 7 days, does that mean it will happen every 7 days, or do you have to apply this same task as many times as you want?
We're going to show you how to make it every 7 days.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Kendyl,
go ahead.
hello, Kendyl.
Yes.
Hi, this is Teresa. Listen, I have been wondering this since I've been looking here. I have only been able to make a 6-column table in Evernote. What's the trick to the 7 columns here?
That would be for an Evernote seminar. I'll answer that question offline. Seriously. Okay, all right. Well, it's actually not that difficult. So when you're editing,
Sorry about that.
this icon right here is your table
Right.
icon. So click that, and of course it doesn't want to do anything. Format, tables, table properties, and you can tell it how many that you want. Oh, it's not there either.
Okay.
But when you set it up,
Sorry to get off track
that's
here.
okay.
Sorry.
It'll actually ask you how many columns you want. You can add. I don't know how many you can add, but there's a lot. I use, so just so you know, I use Evernote because it happens to be the place where I jot down everything. You don't need to use Evernote. You can use Excel. You can use Google Sheets. You can use anything that'll allow you to create a table of any sort. Okay, so don't get hung up on Evernote. Just know that this is a table format. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You betcha. All right, so let's take this table. Let's just take this list of things that we're looking at, and let's see how we can translate this into Realvolve. Now, the thing that's important to understand is that a table or a list is always two-dimensional. It's just a list of things, and at best, all you can do is order them 1, 2, 3. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. Right? It's two-dimensional. A list of things in a particular order. That's it. A computer, which would be Realvolve, can do so much more than just list these things and have them in a chronological order. And this tiny little workflow that we're talking about is actually going to help us see how things can be more three-dimensional. So here's our Realvolve dashboard. And we're going to click on the button up here that says Workflows. And we're going to add a workflow. So we're going to add, and we're going to create a brand new workflow. This, by the way, is where you can import a table. I've never done that, so I can't actually speak very well as to how that works. Or this is where you would find workflows that have already been written that you want to add to your system. You can explore that on your own time. So we're going to create a new workflow, and this is going to be the test for follow up 1 time a week. Okay. All right. Now, you have to use it with a particular bucket. And if you remember this from Realvolve, we have 3 separate buckets: a bucket for information pertaining to the contact, information pertaining to the property, information pertaining to the transaction. And these 3 buckets are not interactive. They're separate. We get into why in another situation, but for now, just accept that that's true. So in this particular one, it's a follow-up. So obviously we're going to follow up with contacts. So we're going to apply this to the contact bucket of information. You can add a description here. We're not going to talk about alternate workflows or groups just yet. Okay, so we're going to add this as a new workflow. And now that we have the workflow set, we're going to add activity. So here's something that's really important. It's a vocabulary thing. Activity versus action. I say this because it took me more time than is reasonable to understand these 2 vocabulary words, and they're kind of the key to understanding how this whole thing works. Activity is something that needs to happen to move your workflow forward. So our workflow is follow up. An activity is something that we need to do, which in this particular case is call 1 time a week, right? So that's the activity. The action are the tools that you need to complete the activity. So if your activity was somebody asked, send an email to the title company. Okay, that's your activity. I want to send an email to the title company. That's the activity. The action would be attaching the email, the template, to the activity. Okay, does that make sense?
Could you repeat that?
Yes, I can, because it's confusing. Activity is the thing that needs to happen in order to move your project forward. Okay, so workflow is a project. The activity is what we need to do to move the project forward. So in my example is the activity is I need to tell the title company, I need to give them, I know what it was. I need to give the title company a copy of the contract and the counteroffers and tell them this is the deal that it's in. Okay, that's the activity. Need to do that in order to move my escrow forward. The action is the tools we need in order to complete the activity. So in this particular example, we need to send the email to the title company, right? And so the action, come on. Oh, here we go. The action is the email that we need to send. Okay, so we need to send a message, and we'll go over all of this in a little bit. But that's the tool that we need to complete the activity.
Hey, Kendall.
Yeah.
Can I just, I kind of look at the activity as the things that you have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and the actions are the tasks to complete that activity.
You could look at it that way.
Okay.
I got really messed up thinking of it that way because to me, tasks and activities were the same thing. So
Huh?
I tended to think of actions as the tools needed to use the activity. But yeah, yours works as well.
When you just call the actions like the automated activity,
You could,
I
but
mean the automated.
it isn't always automatic. That's why it gets kind of confusing because you can send a message automatically. You can send it manually. You can send it automatically. There's a lot of different options there.
No, I meant automated, such as email, text. Not automated, but you know what I'm saying. It has to be one of those things on the list there.
Pre-written. That's correct. Yes.
Right.
So that would be a tool that was needed to complete the activity. All right. So we're going to go to the next one. So on our table, the first thing was to call one time a week. Okay. So we're going to do that. Call one time a week. That is the title of the activity. That's what we need to get done, right? We're going to assign it to me. Now, those of you who have people in your business, you can assign it to a human being. Or what I recommend is you can assign it to a role within your business. The reason I want that is because, right now Daniel is an agent within my business. Okay. But Daniel might leave for another brokerage. I know, heavens to Betsy, but it could happen. Instead, why don't we just assign it to buyer's agent? And that way this workflow will work no matter who is in our business. Okay. But in this particular case, I'm writing this one for me. If you're an individual agent, you'll be writing this for you. And you can assign it to yourself. Okay. Pick the interested parties, not relevant in this particular one because we know we're going to be applying it to a contact, so we know that's going to work. The schedule when. This is an important window because this gives you a lot of power to make sure that your tasks, your activities are going to show up on your dashboard when you need to do them, not before, not after, not months from now, but when you need them. So in this particular case, we're going to call one time a week, and we're going to want this to happen 7 days after, and it's not the start date. It's 7 days after the last call date. Okay, so somebody asked me, am I going to have to reenact this one every 7 days? No. We want to do 7 days after the last call date. What this means is that Realvolve is going to remind you 7 days after the last time you called to call again. Now, why is that important? Because let's just say that, with other systems, it might be like with Google Calendar. You could tell yourself, repeat this activity every 7 days, right? And it'll show up in your calendar every 7 days. But let's just say on the day you're supposed to call, 3 escrows blow up in flames and you are very, very busy. And as disciplined as you are, you did not make your prospecting phone calls that day. And let's just say that 2 of those escrows you might be able to save with heroic efforts. And so you spend the next 4 days concentrating on those 2 escrows and you manage to save both of them. Congratulations, you get a gold star. But now you have these prospecting phone calls that didn't happen. Well, you're going to call them now because they're on your dashboard. So you call them up and you say, hey, just wanted to check in. So you do that. You do not want another reminder in 3 days because you just called them 3 days ago, right? And you don't want to have to retool and recalculate everything. You just want the system to remind you to call every 7 days from the last call. This is how we do it. 7 days after the last phone call is what we're going to do. And there's no action to do because we're not sending any emails or anything. We're just doing a phone call. Okay. Clear so far?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So now we're going to do something even cooler that your paper list can't do easily. We're going to put in here the home mobile as a checklist, and I'll show you how cool this is in just a second. We're going to put in here notes into the checklist, hit enter, and then we're going to hit last call date. All right, so the way you do these are called merge fields, and they're containers. The double bracket means I'm containing some information that Realvolve is pulling from somewhere else, and I want you to stick it in this particular activity. Merge fields can be used not just for templates, but for these checklists. This is what's going to happen. When I launch this activity, Realvolve is going to say, oh, I have information in this data field called contact home mobile. I'm going to put it right there. So we're going to be able to see the mobile home phone number right when we click off the activity. We're going to be able to put into this container the notes that are going to happen when we talk to this person. And then we're going to be able to tell Realvolve, okay, I called today. So today was my last call date. So I want you to tell me 7 days from today when I'm going to call. So this doesn't make sense right now, but when I show you how the workflow actually is launched, it's going to make a ton of sense. And you're going to be so amazed. Okay, so that's this particular one. We're going to add this. Now, here's the thing. Let's see, what's the next thing on here? Call one time a week. To do decisions, stay or go in 6 months. Okay, so that's my next one. So let's add our next activity. Okay, so this is how I know. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to assign it to myself, pick the interested party, schedule when. So we're going to do this 6 months after the start date, because in 6 months, I need to decide, are they going to stay or are they going to go? Okay. And so that has been done, and that's a to-do. It's not anything else. And there isn't any actions that we need to do. We're either going to decide to stay and cancel the whole workflow, or we're not. Okay. So that's going to be an add. Then the last thing that I had in my little workflow is to tag it, because I want to keep track of all of the people in my system that I'm following up with. Tag contact. When? It's going to be 0 days after the start date, because I want to do that right away. This is a to-do. Now we're going to use our create actions button here because we have a thing to do, which is called tagging. So in addition to sending messages, we can also add or remove tags. So I want to add or remove a tag, and I'm going to add the follow up one time a week tag. Okay, because I just want to know, who am I following up with? All right, so that's going to add this tag to the contact automatically. You can also remove tags if you want to. Please enter a title. Oh, add workflow tag. Okay, all right. And now we add that activity. Now there's one more. So we now have 3 things. We're going to call one time a week. We're going to tag the contact. We have to make a decision to stay or go in 6 months. There's one more thing that we have to do that we didn't have to do in our mental checklist because we already knew we were going to call. And that is, we need to actually add that first phone call that we're going to do. So call to follow up, or we can, I think I named it first phone call. And the first phone call is different because it only happens one time. That first phone call happens 0 days after the start date, right? And on this one, this is when we're going to actually put the last call date so that Realvolve knows when we did things. So we're going to do our home mobile, enter, and we're going to put our notes, because we want to put the notes in. Oops, notes, contact notes. And here we're going to put last call date. and hit enter. Okay, that was important because we have to establish that first phone call, and then Realvolve can then take it off from the races from there. All right, so this is our very, very simple 4-point follow-up 1 time a week workflow. So now what we're going to do is we're going to show you what it looks like when it's been applied. All right, so we created a test contact right here called John Byer or Jeff Byer. So imaginative. This is how you start a workflow. You're going to hit start right here, and then you're going to choose the workflow. What did I call it? Test follow-up 1 time a week. Okay. When you start typing, it brings it up. So we're going to apply that. We're going to apply it to Jeff Byer. Hit next. Now, when you apply a workflow, sometimes you're going to start the workflow in the middle, right? Maybe you already did your first phone call or what have you. You don't need to do all of those. So you just want to uncheck them and say, I already did the first phone call. I don't need it, right? So you could uncheck it. And that helps you to set up the workflow correctly right from the very beginning. But in this particular case, we're just going to go ahead and say all of them. The start dates are all there. It tells you when you're going to be doing the next phone call, when you're going to be ending this. And if you want to make any modifications here, you can, because sometimes the template was great, but it needs to be modified for this particular contact. And we're starting it on the 29th. So we're going to go ahead and say that's done. Now it's applying the workflow. There's 2 places that you can see the activities that you need to do because you've applied this workflow. The first place is, here we are, Jeff Byer's record. The first place is in their activities tab. We can see all of the ones that need to happen for Jeff. But honestly, you're not going to go through your database and look at each single one that has that. What you're going to do when you wake up in the morning is you're going to start with your dashboard. And you're going to scroll down to the activities that are due. And that's going to be right there. So it tells me when I follow it up, it says, oh, you've got 2 actions that you need to do today. The first thing you need to do is you need to tag Jeff as a contact. So I'm going to add that workflow tag. I'm going to hit that and then hit run. Okay, so remember we talked about it. The activity is tag contact. The action is what we need to do in order to complete that activity. In this particular case, add the workflow tag. We're going to run it, and that's been done. Now we want to make our first phone call to Jeff Byer. So here's where it gets really cool. I'm going to hit complete, and it says, okay, these are the things that you need to do. Oh, Jeff doesn't have a phone number. Hang on a quick second. Let me just go to Jeff. I'm going to put in that phone number so you can see how cool. Oh, contact. Because this is work number. Okay, we're going to make that the home mobile because that's what I put in there. By the way, just so that you know, this is my personal preference. I make the primary phone number that I call for that contact, whether it's a work number, work cell, home cell, doesn't matter. I put that primary number right here. That's just me because I like it when it comes up at the top, or primary phone number right there. All right, so let's go back to our dashboard real quick. Go down to that first phone call. Let's click there. Okay, there you go. That phone number is right there. So I don't have to go to Jeff's contact record in order to look up his phone number. It's right there on my dashboard as I'm whipping through all the activities that I need to get accomplished today. So I'm going to call that phone number, and then Jeff answers and he says, oh, glad to call. I'm not ready yet. I want to pick up the home search next week. So I'll say, great, I'm going to call you next week. We'll pre-qualify at that time. So just put in those notes, okay, right there while I'm on my dashboard. And I want to record this date that I'm calling so that Realvolve knows when I actually called. So we'll calculate 7 days from today. So you could find it on the calendar and click that, or you could just click today and it will put in today's date. I'm going to save and close. And now that one has been done. So here's what's important and really, really cool. Let's go back to Jeff Byer's record. So first thing that you want to see is that it's been added the tag follow up 1 time a week. And that was done right from our dashboard. And then the notes that I typed in while I was calling from my dashboard are right here on his radar. So this saves a whole bunch of time, especially when you're making up your follow-up phone calls. You want to do them. You just want to bang them out. Boom, 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 boom. This will allow you to bang them out. Boom, 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 boom. But then I want you to see that now call one time a week has been dated for July 6th. And now we know that it's going to do this. Now, if I call here, all right, and the last call date was not July 6th, but was in fact July 11th. Okay. So instead of July 6th, so if we're going 7 days from the 6th, the next phone call would have been calculated for the 13th, correct? But let's just say we didn't do it on the 6th. We didn't get around to it until the 11th. So we put that in, save and close. Let's just go ahead and hit refresh. Did it do it? Oh, okay. All right. Now, this has been recalculated to call on July 18th, not on the 13th. It calculated to go 7 days from the day you actually called, which in my opinion is a super cool thing that not many programs know how to do. Okay. Last thing that I wanted to do is I just wanted to cover merged fields real quickly. You saw one way that I could use merged fields. The way most of you are going to use merged fields is going to be for templates. Okay?
Can I ask a question before you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so the question is, when you set up those two activities, the initial phone call,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't check off the boxes to close it out?
Correct.
Okay, and is there a reason for that?
I need to get clarification from Mark Stepp on that, quite frankly. He has said that if I check off all of those boxes, that activity will be done and it won't show up again next week.
Okay, so I get that. That was my question for the follow-on calls, but the initial call is a one-time thing.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking. Okay.
That one actually, I could have and should have just checked off all three of the boxes.
Yeah, the reason I asked, because that was the confusing part. When I said I used that workflow, that little simple one, I listened to the recording from the last time, and I set it up, and I closed it all out, and I go, hey, I don't have a task now for my follow-on call. And then I figured it out that if I check off the boxes, that it'll close out. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that you just maybe forgot to close out the initial one, and I wanted to make sure there wasn't a reason. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's just that I've trained myself to not check all of the boxes when it's a follow-up phone call.
I just think it's a good point to make to everybody, because otherwise they're going to be saying, how come I'm not getting my call for next week set up?
Absolutely. And thank you for pointing that out. You're absolutely right. So did everybody understand what she just said?
I think you're glossing over something that's really important.
Well, we're trying to talk about it right now. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's like it's really confusing to have a checkbox and to remember when not to check it.
Understood. Understood. So it's not my intention to gloss over anything. We are trying to go over what we need to know. So in this particular case, there are 3 items in the checklist. And when you are doing follow-up phone calls, you don't want to check off all of the items. So let's go back to our dashboard. And
it'll keep showing us activity to complete, right? So
correct.
If you've done it.
Right. Yeah. So if you check off all 3 of these things, then the entire activity will go away and it won't pop up 7 days from now. Does that make sense?
Well, that's for the follow-up.
Be always in the red because you're going to be wondering if you've done it or not.
Correct.
When you've had 10 of them, let's say. So I don't understand.
Can you repeat your question because you fell out?
Oh, sorry. I'm just curious because it will keep showing as an activity you've done, even though I did it yesterday. Is that right then?
It'll recalculate itself. So the first phone call, who was the person who asked the question?
Sandy.
So when Sandy was talking about it, she says on the first phone call you should have checked off all 3, so it'll go away. She's correct. So we do that, save and close, and now it's gone, right? So let's go to Jeff Beyer. And let's go to his activities. And let's pretend, well, basically, the male who asked the question about when is it going to come up. So this is a black activity. It's not red. Okay. And the reason it's not red is because it's not due until July 18th. All right. So let's just check it off. And we're pretending we're making the phone call. And let's say that our last call date, see if I do this and let's see what happens. If it goes, let's just play with this. If I were to do July 1st, save and close, will it recalculate and make it red? I think it will. Okay, it doesn't because it's still in the future. But this one, as long as you have it on there, you want to be calling it, you want it to repeat, you can change this date so that it will no longer be on your dashboard. It will then reset itself for a time down the road and will show up. But if you click all three of these, it will completely disappear.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Look, this was my aha light bulb moment.
Love it.
Yeah, and I think it's the date. The reason it doesn't turn red is each time you make the phone call, you're putting in your last call date, which is going to extend your call date out 7 days.
Correct.
That's why you don't check it off, because so each 7 days you'll always have a phone call until that one activity comes up that says, do I want to keep calling?
It's resetting itself. That's correct.
Yeah, that's why it won't go red.
That's correct. It won't go red, and it's no longer on your dashboard because it's been kicked down the road for 7 days, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it was.
let me see if, this is Lauren. To make sure I understand how this works, if, for example, instead you change that last call date to June 1st, so that it's in the past, and 7 days from then is also past, it will turn red. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Let's just do it. All right, so now I'm going to hit refresh. And now it is turned red because it's in the past.
Okay, so it's overdue now because it should have happened by June 14th.
Correct.
And then once you click on it again and say, oh, I finally got around to calling him today, it'll schedule for 7 days out and it won't be red anymore.
Correct.
Aha.
And it'll show up in the dashboard too, correct?
Correct. Well, it'll show up in the dashboard when it's ready to be done.
And it's red. Even if it's red, if it's past due as well, right?
Yeah, on July 6th, the way this one is now, on July 6th, it's going to show up on your dashboard as red.
Kendall, doesn't it just drop off completely, though, if you let it get out there too far and don't do it?
That's above my pay grade, actually. I'm a little bit twitchy about checking off my check marks, so I haven't had that happen. But I
read that the other day somewhere.
It could be. It very much could be. That's a question for Mark.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So
Go ahead.
Is the message not to check off your sub check boxes?
Correct.
Just check off the major check box?
Correct. This is actually the only incidence that I know of where you should not check all of your boxes. Is this particular workflow the way I've written it? And almost every other instance, you're going to make a decision, like decision, stay or go. You're either going to check it or not check it. Have I completely confused all of you?
Nope, I'm finally clear.
Okay, cool. Yay. I'm like so happy. Okay. Let me just kind of go real quick over to templates because this is a powerful part of your toolbox. You're going to use merge fields most of the time with the letters that you're going to write and attach to your actions. Okay, so I always like to show this one just because there's lots and lots of merge fields in it. And of course, it doesn't want to do it. I think I made it. I think I called it opening. There we go. Opening letter. Okay, so you're opening up escrow and you want to send a letter to the other side and you just want to introduce yourself and your team members to the other side. And you want to tell them, look, this is who I am. This is, thank you for choosing us, because I'm in a multiple offer situation. So we're always in a state of gratitude when a listing agent chooses our buyer. So thanks for choosing us, choosing the buyer. The buyer, Susie, is the first name. Smith is the last name. Thank you for choosing Susie Smith. We'll do everything in our power. And then I want you to know who our people are. So our buyer's agent, first name, last name, our transaction coordinator, first name, last name. Here's all their contact information. We have a field rep that delivers stuff. So here's our field rep. Here's our lender. Here's our escrow officer. If you happen to be the one choosing the escrow officer, here are the dates that we're using. Let us know. Oftentimes we'll say, let us know if you have any changes to that. Anyway, this is a letter that I wrote once, and then every time I use the letter, Realvolve is going to insert the information that they have for this container. Okay, so the container is named transaction buyer agent first name. Okay, that's the container of information. And so we're saying, Realvolve, we want you to go find the information that is contained in this field. And we want you to stick it in there. That's what a merge field is. So this looks like a bunch of programming gobbledygook, and it kind of is. But you might want to say, well, look, I want to write a letter and I want to create some merge fields, but I don't know what merge fields I can use. So what we have is a workflow tutorial guide 6.1. This is available for you in the Realvolve help section. That's where you can find it. And then I just sliced out the portion of it that pertained to merge fields. It's Appendix B. And I use this guide, this list of merge fields, and I've never even counted how many merge fields there are. It's ridiculous. I use this guide to tell me how much I can tweak a letter and make it individual. And I want to know what's available. And sometimes it changes the letter that I write because I didn't realize I could insert, for example, the broker open date. Oh, wow. Does that mean that I could send a letter to my seller and say, just a reminder that your broker open house is on this date, and just want you to be prepared and this time. Okay. When I found that, I went, wow, I could create a letter around that. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to put it into workflow. I'm going to send it automatically out to my seller so that we're reminded. Isn't that cool? And so going through these merge fields it can be very intimidating, but each one is just some data that you can use. All right. So I just wanted to point that out so that you can be inspired by what's available to you and how to do that. All right.
Kendyl, I have a question.
Yes.
This is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
So when you use a template, do you have to, and you're using these merge fields, do you have to make sure you've gone in and filled in all those merge fields, or can you do like what you did in the last one and put in the merge fields in the step that's send the information to the title company, for example, and
Right.
then you have a checklist where you're filling in all the information, say commission splits,
Yeah.
buyer's agent, lender, all of that? Or do I have to physically go into the transaction and enter all that information? Does that make sense?
You have to enter it in the transaction before you can generate the templates.
Okay.
Because that's where
So
that's where Realvolve
can I
is
do
coded.
that though in the activity by creating a checklist?
Theoretically,
You know what I'm
yes.
saying?
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah, how would the letter show up? Would it just show transaction by because it wasn't filled in? I think that's what Debbie's asking, right, Debbie?
Yeah, I'm just like the first time I used this, I've just created. I was telling her earlier, I created for under contract for a listing. So I have a template that's set up to go to the title company, and when I got ready to send it, I realized I hadn't put in my commissions. But I'm wondering if I have all the questions in a checklist in the activity.
I don't know. Let me see.
That I check off, and then it goes to the action to send it.
Okay, now you got me all excited. Let me see.
Can I say something?
That's
Debbie,
what I love
can I
about
say
this. It's like so many different ways to do things. Okay, wait a minute.
Hey,
Just
Debbie.
Yes.
I created
letter
something
would just send off and it wouldn't have it in there. It would just have that gobbledygook in there. In the letter, you wouldn't want that to be sent off. and seen
So
by anyone.
she's actually talking about within a workflow, could we fill in, okay, wait a minute, I can't do it with this one because it's not a transaction one. I gotta do a new one. So she's actually saying, within the workflow, can we create a checklist where she fills in all this information and it actually goes to the right place? And that's a really good question.
Because don't you, once you complete it, you check off then everything with all the information in it, then it saves that information, and then it says, do you want to run the template or run the action?
Yeah, well, so I mean, the reason that I've never done this is that the way our process works here at Diggs is that we actually start with the let me just open up a new window here. We actually start with the transaction. We don't start it with the workflow. So we actually start the transaction and we fill in all the information and then we launch a workflow, right? Because think about it. Here's a transaction here. You got to start the workflow on something.
That's right. Okay.
Right? So yeah, so we would be filling in our commission and our property details and all of our transaction dates, and we do all of that. And actually, we do all of that before we launch the workflow, but it doesn't really matter.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just where do you start the information? That was a really good question because technically, I probably could do a workflow.
Just so all of it's right there and easy to find is all I'm thinking.
Yeah, see, I mean, technically, you could actually put in a checklist for transaction commission, and you could fill it out from a workflow. But I just don't think that's an efficient way of doing it.
Okay. And then I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I'm very much a calendar person. I like to be able to look at my calendar and go, this is what's happening this week. And I understand that under the calendar, you can ask to show your activities or not. But sometimes the activities get really combobulated. There's a lot because I have my lead generation activities and whatever. So if I want something like my inspection objection, my title commitment due, those kind of dates to really stand out, do I have to show them as something special in the activity? Like when I have the closing date.
No, for us, it's just it's an on-off toggle. You either sync it with your calendar or you don't. So
that Google Sync, that simply to make it show up on your calendar or not show up on
your calendar? Are you talking about your Realvolve calendar? Or are you talking about your fair admission, I actually don't use the Realvolve calendar because I run my team off of a combined Google Calendar. So I don't know the answer to your question, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. Ask that in the group, perhaps. Maybe Gary can answer it.
Okay.
All right, cool. The last thing that I want, is there any other questions?
Kendall, I have a question.
I had a question too.
Okay, let the lady go first and then we'll let you go.
Well, thank you very much. Kendall, what I'm wondering, and this has bothered me for a while and I can't seem to come up with the answer, but on your actions, when you have more than multiple actions, is it always an either or proposition, such as list, relist, or because that is really confusing to me. Can we talk about that?
Okay, so list, and let's just say that we're sending a message with the list. Choose how to send the message. Let's say it's an email, and it doesn't matter. We'll just pick any template, right? Okay, so that's going to be one action, right?
Okay.
And then let's create a second action, relist. Okay, and let's say they do that. You're going to send a completely different email. Is that reasonable to what you're asking?
What I'm asking is it always one action or the other action?
No.
Or can you have multiple actions that on the same activity that are not like opposed to each other, such as that one, list, relist, or some other such thing as like that. It
Well,
seems like that's what I've been reading, because it's like, okay, you have more than one action on one activity. This it's either going to be this one or that one. Like, for example, like the incomplete checklist, such as documents. You're going to send out this, redo this whole thing by sending out another email, asking for the documents,
mm-hmm,
or all the documents are received and the activity's done.
mm-hmm.
So I'm a little confused by that, because it seemed to me like I remember somebody saying, no, it's not always either this action or that action.
It doesn't, Realvolve doesn't care if it's a yes, no, either or. Realvolve is just saying, look, here's an activity. And if you want to write down 6 different actions that need to happen in order to complete that activity, and they're, just unrelated or what have you, you can do that. Realvolve doesn't care.
Okay, well then I guess I need to rethink what I'm thinking. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would
But
actually be very.
yes,
So branching workflows, this is what branching workflows is, by the way. When Mark talks about branching, he's basically saying you've got an activity, I don't know, list property, um, and there are a number of ways that you could go with this activity. If this happens, then then you're going to take this action. If that happens, then you're going to take this completely different other action. Okay? And this is like mind-bending shit that I plan to. It really is, because dudes, you all think like I'm a total guru on Realvolve, and like I'm pretty evolved, but some stuff breaks my head, and branching workflows is one of the things that breaks my head. And so
I'm so glad.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm really glad to hear that I'm not the only one that
Dude,
has
no. This
mind
is
problems here.
with great
I
power comes great responsibility. So I want to do an advanced workflow workshop with Mark for those of us who have kind of nailed down the basics, which are hard enough to do, and to get into some just super cool stuff. And I need him to do it because honestly, I don't understand it as well as I should. So, I'll bumble through with you as best I can. But whoever was just talking a second ago, dude, if you've got a situation that you're thinking about in terms of branching workflows, I'd love to get on the line and talk to you about it, just so that I can help actually further my understanding of workflows.
there's a recorded one with Mark. I participated in one of his workshops,
Mm-hmm.
and we actually went through it for the inspection response.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it was a branching. It was a simple question: is the inspection satisfied or not satisfied? That was on the checklist. And whether you checked it or didn't check it, there were 3 actions you could do. So if you go out and look for the I don't know which one it is, but it's out there, and he walks through how to do it.
Awesome.
That would be great. I would love to know where that one is.
Yeah,
I did it. It's great.
yeah, that'd be super cool. I'll look for it, and if I find it, I'll post it. If you find it, post it for us.
All right, I'll find it.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that stuff is just super cool, and I haven't gotten into it as much as I'd want to. Now, there was a specific question from somebody before the class started about groups. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. Are you guys? Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I missed. There was another question from the gentleman.
Yes, hi, this is Chris. I had 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one, if I have my system set up for when a new lead comes in from, say, Zillow, and it can automatically text the lead to say, hey, thanks for checking me on Zillow. I'll be in touch with you in X amount of minutes. And then I want to put them in the follow-up workflow of 1 time a week. Do you recommend doing it as 2 separate workflows, or is there a way to combine them?
I have it as 2 separate workflows, but you could do it in one. The only reason I have it in 2 separate workflows is that the first workflow, which triggers the immediate text message, that's actually triggered by Zapier, and so it's just easier for me to do a 1 action workflow from Zapier. The other challenge is because I have agents, so I'm actually assigning an agent to a chain, and I can't do that with Zape. So my first action, my first workflow is initial lead response, which is that automatic, that immediate text. And then there is the option to launch the follow-up, and then that's where I assign the agent. That's just for me. But if you're a
Okay.
single agent, you can certainly do all in one.
Okay. My second question is, besides running a search on a particular tag, is there any other way to find out which contacts you have on what workflow?
Only if you tag them. The only way you can do it is to tag them.
So when you assign a workflow, it basically takes that set of activities and basically pastes them to the contact, and there's no like master list of workflows that those go back to.
Nope. It's something that is on our development list, but it's not real high on the priority, quite frankly. It is something we know we need to do. So for now, until that happens, and I wouldn't expect it to happen anytime soon, put into each of your workflows, tag this person or transaction or property. Tag it.
Got it.
Okay. All right, cool. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome, Chris. Any other questions? All right, cool. Real quickly, wanted to cover groups because that was a question that somebody had asked. So I need to get to a digs. Let's see.
Can I follow up on his question?
You bet.
Kendyl, on tags, okay, when you have the workflow editor open and this is just like a workflow and then the tag on that one, that's just tagging the workflow.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay, and so but now when you are tagging the contact and yet you're in transaction, should you put that person's name on a tag to that so that, you know, or should, I mean, because I'm a little confused about tagging in regards to, because I mean, contacts, that's easy, I think, but you know, when you have it in a transaction or a property, maybe you should tag their name to it. Is that,
no,
am I making myself?
I understand what you're saying. When you're tagging something, so just say you've launched listing marketing on a property here, right? So you attach it to a property. Essentially, the tag is just allowing you to search all the properties in your database that are currently running the listing marketing workflow. So not
okay, so that doesn't make sense at all. I'm sorry for making
no.
silly.
I understand why you asked it, but the answer, I think, just shifts your perspective a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Did I hear a question coming up? Okay, cool.
Groups.
Go ahead.
I said groups. I'm the one who asked it, and I'm waiting for you to get there.
Okay, we're over by 1 minute, so I apologize, but I just wanted to get to this. So let's dive in for a quick second. All right. So groups is so you've heard me talk about a lot of different workflows. Okay, got a workflow for this, workflow for that. Sometimes you just want one particular workflow. In this particular case, is my listing marketing workflow. But I have certain situations that happen over and over and over again. And I just want to be able to take this workflow and tweak it right when I launch it to apply to this particular listing. And I think this is the one that I use groups the most on. So that's why I'm using it. But I think it's for all of us, we have this situation. You take a listing in a particular city, like, for example, the city of Pasadena. And City of Pasadena has certain crazy pants requirements that are unique only to the City of Pasadena. And I need to write a series of activities to handle the City of Pasadena crazy pantsness. But I don't want to see these activities when I list something in the City of Glendale. Does that make sense? I'm sure you guys all have situations like that, right? Or you guys will list a condo, and when you have a homeowners associations, there's a number of activities that you have to do when you list a condo that do not apply when it's a single family dwelling, right? Like you have to order the budget bylaws, CCNRs, article incorporation, and the insurance document. You got to order all that stuff. And because HOAs are all completely stupid, you need to do that when you get the listing, because if you wait until you go into escrow, you're never going to get those HOA docs on time to close escrow, right? We all do this. I take a listing on a condo, first damn thing I do is contact the HOA and beg and plead for the HOA document so I can actually sell this sucker. So we want to be able to pick and choose what we're going to apply when we launch the workflow. So how do we do that? So let me see if I can find one that is just HD. Okay, here we go. Retrofit letter to the city of Pasadena. Lovely, crazy pants, Pasadena. Okay, so here's the activity, retrofit letter to Pasadena. We have to actually send a letter to the city of Pasadena requesting a city inspector to come to my listing. Okay, and that's going to be with seller number 1 and seller number 2. That's what we have to send the letter to, because it can't come from us. It actually has to come from the homeowner. Don't ask. It's stupid. The listing coordinator is the one who is going to do it. We are going to do this activity 2 days after the start date. It has to happen right away because God only knows we're going to get the inspection date. And here's what's important. This little box here would say groups if I didn't have something. So this applies only when I'm using the group City of Pasadena. So I'm click that, City of Pasadena, and then we attach the letter that we actually have to send, which is thank you for listing. It's telling them we have to do this. This is basically what we're doing. And then we're going to update it. Okay. So that's how an activity gets into the group. The way that you have the groups to begin with is pretty simple. Click add group. Okay. So we're going to add a group. This is the test group, OUP, test group. We're going to update. And now we're going to add a new activity. And this is a test group activity, right? Because we're just trying to show you how it works. Adding that activity, we're going to leave all this stuff alone for the moment. See how this says general right here? When you click on it, it gives you all of the choices of the groups that are associated with this particular workflow. So I just created the new group, test group. So we're going to do that. And this only applies to test group. Now we're going to add. And if when we launch, go ahead.
Is there a way to assign multiple groups at that point?
No. Why would you want to do that?
It's not like hold the control down and you can do multiple selections.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It's just the individual group. Does that answer your question, Lauren? I think it was Lauren. Was it Lauren that wanted that one?
Yeah, I think I can see how that could work with my situation. I could have a Portland group and a Los Angeles group, and I could modify things that way. Thank you.
Exactly. Although, Lauren, I mean, I still think that if you're going to be using my workflows in particular, it's just dead. It's a lot simpler. Just copy it and then modify each individual workflow. Okay.
Hey, Kendall, I just posted the Q&A that talks about branching out on the Facebook forum. Okay.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is awesome, awesome, and more awesome. All right. Well, we went overtime on this one, but you guys asked the best questions of any group we've ever had. So I really appreciate that because I learn as much from the questions as I do from flapping my lips about what I do every day. So you guys are fantastic. I am going to be posting this recording on the group. Mark's on vacation and he's the guy who does this, so it might take a few days. But I really appreciate all of your participation. I look forward to talking to you even more on the Facebook groups. Okay?
Thank you, Kendall.
All right. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
And be awesome.
Kendall, thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.